أي سلاح ولو كان كاسرا للتوازن.
ليش ما كسر التوازن هو؟
أنا مع المصلحة الوطنية.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. The Parliament's Electoral Subcommittee resumes consultations to reach an agreement over the new electoral law. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon warns against losing momentum on proposed international peace conference generated by the US and Russia. And David Beckham's fans and teammates react after the soccer icon's announcement to retire, wishing him well. The Parliament's Electoral Subcommittee has resumed consultations this afternoon to discuss the hybrid proposals. Consultations are ongoing among the Lebanese foes to reach an agreement on a new electoral law that would govern the upcoming parliamentary elections, despite media reports saying the opposing parties are already discussing the possibility of extending the parliament's tenure. Speaker Nabih Berri postponed a parliamentary session on May the 15th to allow more consultations over the matter. The Parliament's Electoral Subcommittee held a meeting at 1:30 p.m. today and is set to hold another session in the afternoon to discuss the hybrid proposals. On Thursday, the Speaker scheduled another parliamentary session for Saturday, which is set to be decisive on whether to extend the Parliament's tenure to hold the polls. Another session is scheduled to be held at 6 p.m. this evening. President Michel Sleiman has warned of extending the tenure of Parliament, calling on MPs to exert efforts to reach consensus over a new electoral law. He pointed out that the extension of the Parliament's term may have negative repercussions on Lebanon's reputation, economy, and the trust granted to it by foreign countries. Sleiman added that constitutional deadlines should be respected. Lebanese Forces MP Antoine Zahra has slammed the Free Patriotic Movement's campaign against the party, saying it is seeking to reach an agreement over a parliamentary electoral law that enjoys the consensus of all sides. During a press conference in response to the FPM campaign, he said, and I quote, "The movement is seeking to achieve political gains, not an agreement over an electoral law." He said his party seeks to support the entire country and not just achieve personal interests, and that it was working on reaching an agreement over an electoral law that enjoys the consensus of all sides. Zahra said his party no longer supported the Orthodox Gathering proposal because he says it can never be implemented. Prime Minister-designate Tamam Slam has received the Special Coordinator for the United Nations in Lebanon, Derek Plummy, at his residence in Musaitbeh. Plummy renewed the UN support for Salam, calling on all parties to coordinate with him because it is important to form a government in Lebanon soon. The Premier-designate then received the Ambassador of the European Union in Lebanon, Angelina Eichhorst, who praised the PM's endeavors to form a government. She emphasized that the Union supported all the ongoing efforts to build a cabinet upon consensus. She said it is important for Lebanon to have a government that takes decisions and manages the affairs of the country in the face of all challenges. Salam also received former ministers Salim Werde and Tony Karam, dispatched by Lebanese Forces leader Samir Jaja to follow up on the formation of the government. A child was killed and 3 people were wounded in a fire that broke out in a warehouse storing fuel in the town of Al-Haisa in Akkad. Reports say Ali Al-Hussein Al-Rashid was killed in the blaze that erupted in the warehouse of Hussein Muhammad Al-Rashid, who was injured in the incident. The 2 other wounded, identified as Ahmed Al-Danawi and Sulaiman Khadur, have been transported to hospital for treatment. Head of Civil Defense in the area, Michel Stefan, was also injured in the incident. The blaze was caused by an explosion in the warehouse, with the Civil Defense urging citizens against storing fuel and other flammable material in residential area. A U.S. military delegation headed by the commander of U.S. Central Command, General Lloyd Austin, has arrived in Beirut. Sources say a U.S. military plane carrying the delegation arrived at Rafiq Hariri International Airport around midday, coming from Cairo, Egypt. Details of the visit were not disclosed. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon warns against losing momentum on proposed international peace conference generated by US and Russia. More details in the following report.
During his visit to Russia, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon urged countries to continue to focus on the conflict in Syria. Ban Ki-moon praised Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and US Secretary of State John Kerry for their leadership in proposing and organizing an urgent meeting of stakeholders in the conflict.
We should not lose this momentum generated by Minister Lavrov and Secretary Kerry. There is a high expectation that this meeting should be held as soon as possible.
The meeting in question will aim to include the same global powers that attended a 2012 meeting on Syria in Geneva. But this time it aims to have representatives of the Syrian government and opposition. With Syria's factional and sectarian rivalries more entrenched than ever, however, many doubt the warring parties are ready to negotiate with each other. Most Syrian opposition figures have ruled out any talks unless Assad and his inner circle are excluded from any further transitional government. However, preparations for the meeting continue to gain momentum. In a TV interview, Lavrov accused Western states of wanting to limit the participants and possibly predetermine the outcome of the talks. He also stressed the importance of Iran's participation in the meeting.
Iran has repeatedly underlined its solidarity with the Syrian government. Iranian officials pay regular visits to Damascus, so there is no doubt about that. I'd like to stress once again that no geopolitical bias should be an obstacle to Iran taking part in preparing for and holding the conference from the very beginning.
These developments come a day after a joint conference between President Barack Obama and Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. During the conference, Obama said that he reserves the rights to use both diplomatic and military options inside of Syria if he receives conclusive proof that President Bashar al-Assad has used chemical weapons. Obama repeatedly stressed, however, that he needs more conclusive proof on the matter.
There are a whole range of options that the United States is already engaged in, and I preserve the options of taking additional steps, both diplomatic and military, because those chemical weapons inside of Syria also threaten our security over the long term, as well as our allies and friends and neighbors.
Coming up next, Rio Tinto Australia unveils the largest red diamond ever found at their Argyle mine in Australia. That and more after the break. Welcome back. Turkey has arrested one of the prime suspects responsible for the twin car bombings that killed at least 51 people in a city near the Syrian border. The city's governor said there are still two major suspects at large. The arrested man purchased the vehicles used in the bombings, was caught trying to cross the border into Syria along with his two accomplices. With the latest arrest, Turkey now holds 4 people in jail, while 4 others have been freed pending trial. The governor said that another 4 will be taken to court later in the day and may either be remanded or freed. All suspects are Turkish nationals believed to be backed by the Syrian government, but Damascus has denied involvement and has offered to carry out a joint investigation. Egyptian police has closed the Rafah border crossing with Gaza in protest at the kidnapping of colleagues in the Sinai Peninsula. Security sources said 3 policemen and 4 soldiers were abducted on Thursday by armed men who are demanding the release of a group of prisoners held at a police station in the North Sinai town of Al Arish. The sources added the captured policemen worked at the Rafah border terminal. Today, their colleagues padlocked the gates leading to the terminal protest to protest the abductions. The protest comes a day after President Mohamed Morsi held crisis talks with his defense and interior ministers over the abductions, and as negotiations to secure the release of the servicemen were underway. State media has said that security officials were in talks with the abductors via mediators, local Bedouin leaders who hold sway in the Sinai Peninsula. The Tunisian government says it will decide by Saturday whether to allow or ban Salafists from holding their annual Congress. The Interior Minister warning, however, that death threats from radical Islamists will not be tolerated. Rashid Ghannouchi, who heads the moderate Islamist ruling party in Nahda, said earlier this week that the government had banned the hardline Salafist movement, Ansar al-Sharia, from holding their Congress in the central city of Kairouan on Sunday. Angered by the comments, the group vowed to go ahead with the gathering and warned that the government will be responsible should violence erupt. Ansar al-Sharia spokesman Saifuddin Rais said that the Salafist movement was the object of systematic discrimination. In Africa, French President François Hollande and Malian President Diokounda Traoré have met in Paris to discuss plans to stabilize the Mali in the wake of France's military operations. International donors have pledged 3.25 billion euros to help Mali recover from a conflict with al-Qaeda-linked Islamists exceeding the West African country's target. Hollande said he welcomed the international donations. The development's drive from Mali is aimed at halting a resurgence of the rebels driven out of major northern towns by a French-led offensive this year. French and EU officials said that releasing the bulk of the money was dependent on Mali fulfilling its commitment to holding presidential elections on July 28th. French forces, which swept Islamist insurgents from the far north of Mali, have allowed the Tuareg rebels to run Kidal in recent months, but Mali's government warns to reimpose its authority ahead of July's presidential and legislative elections. At least 10 people were killed after bombs targeted 2 mosques in northern Pakistan. Police say the blast in Bazdara village in the Malakan district also wounded around 20 people. Sources say the roof of one of the mosques collapsed following the explosion. The other mosque was also badly damaged. Reporters on the ground say the blasts happened shortly after Friday prayers, and rescue workers were trying to retrieve bodies from the rubble. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the blasts. And now for news around the world in brief, displaced Myanmar residents previously forced to evacuate ahead of Cyclone Mahasen started to pack up to return home. The cyclone was downgraded to a tropical storm as it passed through Myanmar, bringing heavy rain and winds. Myanmar's government had planned to remove 38,000 internally displaced people from Tuesday from camps in Rakhine state in the west. Many had refused to relocate, afraid of authorities' intentions, but they changed their minds after strong wind and rain on Wednesday night. Cyclone Mahasen killed 6 people in Bangladesh on Thursday, but largely spared the internally displaced residents living in camps. The Yongding Tower, a landmark of the 9th China-Beijing International Garden Expo, was lit ahead of the coming exposition set to open Saturday. The 69.7-meter tall tower is built in a traditional Chinese architecture style, presenting stability and harmony. It will be lit up every night during the 9th Expo, themed A Green Symphony, A Green Garden, which will be held from May to November, boasting 46 exhibitions featuring exhibitors from 60 Chinese cities. Rio Tinto Australia has unveiled the largest red diamond ever found at their Argyle mine in Western Australia at a special preview in Sydney ahead of their annual pink diamond tender. Josephine Johnson, manager of Argyle Pink Diamonds, says the stone is one in a million diamonds of an extraordinary rare kind. She added this kind of diamond has never been seen before and may never be seen again. The precious stone will be sold as part of the tender to a secret bidder. One of England's most brightest stars, David Beckham, has announced his retirement at the age of 38. More details in his decision in the following report.
Beckham could raise the roof here with a goal.
England's best-known football player, David Beckham, has announced his retirement after a career laden with trophies, glamour, and a worldwide impact that went well beyond football. Beckham earned 115 caps for England, a record for an outfield player. He also led Manchester United to win the Champions League, 6 Premier League titles, and 2 FA Cups. Outside the Premier League, Beckham also won league titles with Real Madrid in Spain, LA Galaxy in the United States, and most recently PSG in France. When asked why he retired, the football star said he preferred to leave while still at the top of his game.
Obviously, it's a difficult decision because I still feel that I can play at the top level and still have done for the last 6 months. But I always, secretly said to myself that I want to go out at the top.
Beckham also expressed his wish to be remembered for his zeal at football.
I just want people to see me as a hard-working footballer, someone that's passionate about the game and someone that every time I stepped on the pitch, I've given everything that I have.
Beckham is a well-loved player in the football world. Though disappointed at his retirement, his former LA Galaxy teammates wished him well.
It's obviously sad to hear, because he still has a lot to offer, but he obviously came to the decision, and he's been unbelievable for the game, and everywhere he goes he's respected by every professional and every fan.
Beckham truly had a worldwide impact during his football career. He is no stranger in China, for apart from appearing on billboards, he was also appointed China's first global football ambassador to promote the sport in the country earlier this year. During his year as ambassador, Beckham toured football clubs and schools in Chinese cities to revive the game's image, which has been recently hit by a match-fixing scandal. Chinese fans are also sad to see him go.
I think it's an inevitable trend that a player retires at a certain age, but it is still a shame. After all, he's been playing for so many years and has done very well in the British Premier League and the US League.
Though disappointed at his announcement, many fans are also excited to see what Beckham will do after his retirement. Some see him as a future Manchester United manager. PSG chairman Nasser Al-Khalifi, on the other hand, says the door is open for Beckham if he still wants to be involved in PSG. Japanese fans, however, hope Beckham will return to Asian football leagues later in the future.
There are cases that players reverse their retirement, like Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes of the Manchester United. So I hope he can play once again in 1 or 2 years in football leagues in Japan, China or South Korea for Asian fans and to contribute in the sports in this region.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today, and now for a reminder of our headlines. The Parliament's Electoral Subcommittee resumes consultations to reach an agreement over a new electoral law. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon warns against losing momentum on proposed international peace conference generated by US and Russia. David Beckham's fans and teammates react after the soccer's icon's announcement to retire, wishing him well. That's it from me and the English news team here at FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you a very nice weekend ahead. Have a great evening.
أي سلاح ولو كان كاسرا للتوازن.
ليش ما كسر التوازن الدول؟
أنا مع المصلحة الوطنية.